Welcome to the fourth episode of Adult Life as a Child. Today we're going to talk about the fine things in life. To do that, I'll take you back to when I was 8, 9, or 10, and I look like a mix between Harry Potter and John Lennon. So the long hair from John Lennon and then a general look from Harry Potter. And my mom had a problem with me, which is that I was still peeing in bed. And when I say my mother had a problem with me, what I mean is that at that time I didn't know any better. So yes, it was embarrassing for me, obviously, to wake up with pee all around, and it made it more complicated to go and sleep at people's houses and friends' houses. And when I did, I remember sort of feeling like it was a bit of a gamble and hoping that the peeing thing wouldn't happen, because it's just not fucking cool to wake up in the middle of the night with pee all over you. But I didn't know any better. And for my dad, who is a cardiologist, I think that what's going on through his mind is that he spends all these days with people who have terminal illnesses, people who are dying. I mean, basically his job as a cardiologist, his job finishes when people die, which is fascinating, and we'll talk about that in a future video. But for now, I think the point for him is that on one hand at work he may see children who are dying, who are missing limbs, who can't speak, who don't have brain functions. And then he's sort of looking at his kid who pees in bed once in a while. He's probably thinking, you know what, if that's the worst that happens in his life, it's fine, it's freaking awesome. And so what happens, my mom kept saying, yeah, it may be fine, but that's not cool. That's not normal. There's something wrong here. This is the peak of the iceberg. This is the sign of something deeper. And that is the first lesson to learn from my mom, is noticing the peak of the iceberg. Noticing the little bit that's above and realizing when there is something underneath. Having that awareness. So the moment my mom decided there was something wrong here, something wasn't fine, she started going to see doctors and experts. And the conclusion was the same from everywhere, which is that there was nothing physiologically wrong with me. So there was nothing to worry about. Everything was fine. There's nothing you could do. And my mom kept digging because she thought, there's something else going on here. There's something happening that we're not understanding. There is more to this. And so she kept asking. Eventually she spoke with psychologists. And as the story was told to me, she eventually spoke with Jack, the cousin from New York, who's a trauma therapist. And he ended up having a conversation with my dad, telling him, hey, look, from a trauma perspective, this is not good. You need to do something for your kid, because in the long run, this is going to cause more problems with self-esteem, self-image, social, the way he works in society. You need to do something about this. And so that's when my dad came in the picture. So my mom's superpower here was awareness and looking for help. Awareness and looking for help. My dad's superpower here was the moment he was given the problem, he was like, okay, sure, no problem, I'm gonna fix that. Boom, he created a game. And that's the thing that my dad did really well, gamification. So he created a new incentive, he created a context. So the context he created was, at that time I wanted a Super Nintendo. It was the newest, coolest thing. And one of the most popular games was Mario Bros. And so he created a game in which in order to save the princess from the Mario game, and in order to beat all the bosses from the Mario game, I had to not pee in bed. And so every day worked as a little bit of a longer challenge. So first, for 3 days, I shouldn't pee in bed to complete the first stage. To complete the second stage, I should spend 5 nights without peeing in bed, and then 7 nights, and it got longer and longer. And if I failed, then I had to go back to the beginning of that stage. And every time there was a big boss, and it was all I remember, the board being really cool with drawings and colors, and it was all fun and exciting. And there was the big incentive at the end that if I won the game, then I would win a Super Nintendo. And so what he did is that he transformed the end into the means. So the goal became the tool to achieve a new goal that was more exciting for me at the time. And I remember very well, there's a point where something clicked in my head. At the beginning it was hard, I failed many times, especially when I got close to the end of the stage. And then eventually, boom, something shifted in my head, and I nailed the rest of the thing, and it never was a problem again. So 4 things you can learn, 4 steps you can learn from what my parents did in this situation. The very first thing is to do an exercise around the awareness of what's fine in life. In order to know what's fine, let's make 3 lists. First list you want to make is, what is everything that's awesome? What is everything that's amazing, that's great, that you love, that's fucking great? Put that on one list. Once you're done with that one, you want to make a second list. And that's the other extreme. It's everything that sucks in life. Everything that you're very unhappy with, everything you are sure you want to change, not cool, not good stuff. Things that make you angry, sad, frustrated, etc. I'll put that on the second list. And now what we want is to make a third list. And on the third list, I want you to write down everything that's fine. Everything that's okay. It's not great, doesn't suck, but it's okay. You live with it. No big deal. Whatever. Sure. All of that on that list in the middle. And that list is going to be our list of the fine things in life, which is that the fine things in life are not fine. What's okay is the stuff we compromise on very often. What's okay is often the stuff in which we give up what we really want and we settle for less. And here, the power of awareness is to do what my mom did, which is to single out 1, 2, or 3 things and say, you know what, these things are really not fine. I pretend that they're fine because they are not a disaster, but really, if I'm honest with myself, they really make me unhappy. They really make me miserable, and they really have a negative impact on everything else in my life. So you want to single out 1, 2, or 3 things that really, if you're honest with yourself, they're not fine. They really suck. Once you have that, we go to the next step of my mom's awareness, which is the looking for help, looking for advice, understanding how and why it happens. So there, what you want is to look at the experts in the different fields related to the question you have, to the problem you're looking at, and get a range of perspectives. So people with different opinions, people who come in from different directions. And once you have this list of people, learn about what is their theory as to why and how the problem is happening. Now once we have that, what we can do is to shift to what my dad did. Is to start making the shift from the goal to the means. So now that you're clear on what you want to change and how you want to change it, what is the behavior you want to be different? What we want to do is to change the context in which the behavior change is not the goal, but it's a means to achieve something else. So for example, I've learned English and I'm now learning Spanish, and I never did it by going to classes, Because when you go to classes, you focus on the learning, and the learning becomes the objective. What I did is I started reading books in English that I couldn't find in French, watching series in English that I couldn't see in French. And here in Costa Rica, it's spending time with friends who only speak Spanish. So that the reason I want to learn Spanish and practice my Spanish is to have fun and to be in a great social environment. The reason I wanted to learn English was to learn something interesting or to read cool stories. And when that shift happens, it becomes a lot more exciting and we learn a lot faster. So, in your case, what is the thing you want to change, and how do you make that the means rather than the end? And then the fourth piece of this puzzle that we learned from my dad is creating a context that is exciting. So the way he created a context that is exciting, he created a story around it. So he used Mario, which was something relevant for me at the time. He gave me the incentive of winning a Super Nintendo at the end, which was a big, exciting prize for me. So in the same way, for example, if you wanted to learn programming, instead of just learning programming, creating a context would be to say, well, what about I pick a charity, and in the next 2 months I will create an app that will be useful for that charity. Or I will look at a person in my life who has a problem and create an app to help them solve a problem that they have. Make their life easier, faster, smoother. Or I will create a game. And now you've got a context where you use your programming to do something practical. I want to add a little extra to this video because the peeing in bed story happened to be very interesting from these 4 steps perspective as to how we rewire the brain and how we can retrain our mind and our body to behave differently. There was something much more profound that actually took me another 20 years to discover. Something I recently realized, that day, this experience of learning to stop peeing in bed is actually when I learned the connection between dreams and reality. This is when I discovered what is today called the art of a magical life, which is how do we make our dreams real and how do we make our reality a dream. What I mean by that is that what actually happened, why was I peeing in bed to start with? Which is a fascinating question. The answer is very simple. It was fucking cold. I lived in a cold house. It was always freezing at night. And so when I was in bed, even though I was in front of the toilet, I started to get up, and I remember that your whole body's shivering and you're just like, and you have to go all the way to the toilet. Oh no, it was horrible. So what I would do is to try to go back to bed and fall asleep and wake up in the morning and pee then. And obviously what would happen is I would then have dreams around peeing or being in water or rain, water related stuff. And I remember in my head always thinking, this is a dream, it's not real, it's just a dream. And you can continue sleeping, it's fine. And I would wake up and be all wet and it sucked. And eventually in my head something clicked where I realized that when I was dreaming on these watery stuff, when I was feeling in my dream like I was going to pee, it actually related to reality. And what was happening in reality was connected to what was happening in the dream and vice versa. And so after that experience, I started practicing the art of waking dreams. The art of affecting my dream and the art of waking up in my dreams and noticing that I'm dreaming. Because when we do that, we can start choosing realities. We can start shaping our everyday life. And then over time, what I learned is to do also the thing in the other way around, is to look at life like a dream. And to bring the magic from the dream back into the day-to-day life. So these are topics that we'll speak again in the future, because This is for me the essence of everything we're learning here as to living an adult life as a child. Enjoy the practice of the exercises, and I look forward to hearing about the changes you see, the insights you have, and the observations you make. Lots of love.